De Vries are on Williams this year, the complexion of that team, I think,
would be
is
different.
Far different
Yeah,
than what we're looking at in terms of constructor standings.
I totally agree. If De Vries was on that grid, that Williams car would be getting more and more points. You know, Latifi struggling a little bit, and he has his times, and he has he shows brilliance a couple of times where, you know, he's out qualified George, or he's out raced George, or he's outpaced George. You know, the outright talent of De Vries kind of came out on top there. You know, it's the difference of an outright talent or someone that has been trained to be an F1 driver. There's a difference there. There's an outright talent where you can throw a guy into anything and he will win.
And they're quick.
And then there's a person that will take some time to put the development in, the coach in, the time with the team to get to where they are. You know, it's not it's a natural talent to a trained talent, I guess you can say. And, you know, with Latifi, it's he started racing late. I personally know his coach really, really well. He's a very good coach, and he has trained Nicholas to become an F1 racer. He you know, his coach has joked with me and was like, you know, you don't have to have talent to win an F1 race. You just have to be trained properly. We always got into arguments about this because I think, you can get into F1, and anyone can get into F1 if you're trained properly, but to take that W, it takes a lot more skill to get that W out of a car. I also think, you know, De Vries, Piastri, all of this talent that comes into, like, next year with Piastri being on grid and most likely De Vries being on the grid because of how he raced this year, you'll see how those teams that they race for are just going to elevate to a next level by having talented drivers.
So who gets dropped by the wayside then?
Then it's got to, at that point, you leave Albon in the seat and you get rid of Latifi. Keep him as a reserve.
No, not in terms of drivers. I want to know in terms of teams. Like, when you look at Williams, Haas, Aston Martin, right? With those two drivers, Albon and let's say De Vries, right? Like, we can definitively say they finish in front of those two, right?
Yep.
At least.
Yep. No,
and then there's other teams like Alpine.
Yeah.
I mean, anyhow, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprised. The Italian Grand Prix.
Overwhelming's got to be De Vries. My boy. My boy.
What a showing.
Yeah.
You know, that I was surprised. I didn't know how old he is. That guy's 27.
Yeah,
right?
He is old.
And that's old by
racing standards.
Formula One standards, right? But to think this guy's won everything and he's just been on the sidelines, shows up in a Williams, lands points on the... It's like, what would he do with a weapon?
Exactly. And we've been saying... we've been talking about Nick for 2 years since the start of this whole podcast. And I've always said that guy needs to be in an F1 car, and it showed. Like, that he was on point. He wasn't physically fit to drive this car yet because he wasn't training.
About his shoulders.
He had to get his crew had to come help him out of the car after the race because he couldn't lift his arms. Like, but that just shows the physical demand of driving an F1 car and then taking someone that, you know, is so talented and does all the training and does everything to be a race car driver, because he's still racing. He does Formula E. He's one of the top drivers right now.
Yeah.
And he is a factory Mercedes driver. And then all of a sudden he gets thrown into an F1 car and he still performs. You know, it just shows.
Not to mention, 2 days before he was in a different car with different systems and different gadgets and all. And then, so yeah, man, kudos to Nyck De Vries. I hope that the people over at Williams, at the very least, I think a lot of eyebrows are up.
Yeah.
The driver market is pretty well open, especially when you look at a team like Alpine, maybe like the Gasly thing. But if Gasly leaves, then all of a sudden there's something at AlphaTauri, and that's a whole back end thing. But guys like De Vries need to be on the grid. Underwhelmed.
I want to say, okay, this is going to be a non-driver thing, but I'm going to have to say the FIA, period. Like, just how they finished that race, it's like, come on, guys, man. Like, you could do so much better. You can do so much better, and you have so many opportunities to have a great finish to a great race, and you just blew it. Like, it was like, I was sitting there at the like, I turned to my wife, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is literally how they're going to finish this race right now? Like, we're 4 laps left, and they're already talking about a checker. And they haven't even picked up Max yet. And it's like, I just don't understand. Like, it's just so frustrating. Yes, I get it. FIA has a very high pressure, very strategic position in motorsports, and they have to do everything by the rule book, and they have to do it is a lot harder than everyone thinks.
Yeah.
But when you have 6 laps to do this,
you know what I didn't like about them not throwing the red? I saw the Formula One cars drive by that cherry picker.
yes,
And that is dangerous.
That is.
We've seen Jules Bianchi, rest in peace. He lost his life to one of those because of that.
Yep.
So that right there was a super shock
Yeah.
to me.
I
don't care
agree.
how slow you guys are going.
Yep.
We've seen this go the worst it can go.
Yep.
So as soon as I see that, I'm going, nah.
red flag.
For integrity of the sport, driver safety,
And
paramount
adventure,
among everything else, not to mention history, I think a red should have been thrown on that simply for that.
And I agree. And I bet you if you ask some of the drivers, they were probably like, what the hell's this crane doing on the track when we're on the track?
Facts.
You know?
And the thing about it is they're trying to keep the temperatures up. So they're on and off.
Yeah.
And this ain't no road car.
No.
When they go on to keep the temperatures up, they're going from 0 to 200 in a second.
Yeah.
You know?
Like I don't know. I just think FIA needs to
They need to shake up.
They need to shake up. They need to figure this out. Yeah, you know, a lot of these, how they have a different race director here and there, and they go to this director and this director, and then they use the cameras, and it's just like, guys, we need a consistent person that makes the same call every time.
Yeah.
This inconsistency is just going to ruin the sport and piss a lot of people off, and it's going to chase everyone back away again.
Yeah.
And they need to figure this out, because all it's going to do is hurt the sport. And if it hurts the sport, then their income's starting to go down. And honestly, the new owners, all they care about is income. They don't care about history of the sport, which they need
They
to
don't
change
even
that.
want, like...
How do they get rid of Spock?
Yeah.
The number one race that we all go, this is the pinnacle of F1 tracks, and they're going to get dropped off the calendar?
Like, I respect the fact that they've, you know, the
But a one-year
Netflix deal and this and that. Like, I get it, but the reality of it is he said he don't want no more teams in the sport.
Yeah.
And that don't even make sense to
That
me. You should be
doesn't.
trying to pad out the grid as much as possible.
This is what I don't get, is like when they say, until these grids get bigger, those drivers like De Vries and Piastri, who have the potential and talent to be in an F1 car, are never going to make it into F1 because there's no cars to actually be in F1. If they can make the grids bigger, those backmarker teams that are very small, like Art and Carlin and Andretti and all those teams that are going to start out, can take that guy like Nyck De Vries and be like, hey, go to our team, you're going to be our driver, you're talented, we need a talented driver, not just a money driver to get into this sport. And the bigger fields are going to help with that. You know, when you look at a NASCAR field of 40 guys, there's very, like that talent pool in NASCAR is very big. And some of the top drivers in North America are there because they had the talent and they had the ride to get to where they are. In F1, at the end of a season, there's only 20 spots left. So if those 20 spots are full by the end of the season, the guy that wins GP2 or F2,
you got to sit.
He's going to be sitting doing nothing for a year. So
and that's not good.
That's not
And
good.
you know what happens too, right? 100% agree on everything that you've said. But what happens also is the guys who have the most talent that can't get a seat will go elsewhere.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, you are expected as Formula One to be the top tier level of motorsport, but the talent pool may not may not be in there because they're tied up elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're making great money over this way. Mm-hmm. The level of competition is up because all the guys they used to race with couldn't get seats over there, so now they're all over here racing over here, right? Like imagine Norris, Albon, Russell, Leclerc, Verstappen couldn't get seats, right? Imagine they couldn't get seats and they were all in IndyCar.
Yeah, IndyCar would be stacked.
Well, but what do you think? What do you think the level of competition in IndyCar would be? Do you think they would want to come to F1 and race against guys like Latifi?
Yeah.
I
agree.
You know what I mean?
If I win a championship and the field's full of the backmarker guys, I'm not proud of that. But if you go to an IndyCar championship where there was going into the final round this winter,
yesterday,
the final race was yesterday. They had 5 guys that could win the championship going into the final race.
And here we're looking at Max. He could win the championship with like 5 races left.
It's just like I don't know. FIA's got to figure it out. They have to realize that making the fields bigger gets the talent pool a lot bigger, and then then the competition starts going up, and it's prestigious again. Right now it's not as crazy as a talent pool as it needs to be, because the best drivers, some of the best young up and coming drivers, are not on the grid.
Don't have seats. They just don't have seats, and that might be the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
Out of all of it.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So, yeah, I agree.
It's like, the overwhelm and the surprise is
just
courtesy of one person who literally got the call the morning of to go race.
Yeah, and like the fact that he was fast. Like outright fast.
He was quick.
He was chasing down Gasly.
He was
in a
on Alonso, bro.
Yeah,
he was on Alonso. He was on Gasly. There was a point in the race where Zhou Guanyu was on him and he was holding him.
Yep. For a guy that hasn't driven an F1 race, he looked like he was.
He looked like he was 50 Grand Prix deep.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly, and that just shows why that guy needs to be on the grid. And we've been preaching this guy's name for how long now to get him back on grid.
Yeah.
Same with Piastri. Get him on the grid. You get him on the grid, the talent pool goes up, the racing becomes that much better. And if we just let whoever pay their way in, it's just going to drop. If you think about it, in all of the world, there is 20 spots in IndyCar and F1, and there is 30 spots in IndyCar. So there's 50 spots for open wheel in the entire world.
Yeah.
Of the pinnacle of open wheel, of North American open wheel and European or worldwide open wheel. So 50 people in the entire world are going to be able to race, 20 of them in an F1 car.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? Not always talent's going to get you there. It'll be the money. And that's the problem with our sport.